Before I start this story, let me just say, I never expected this to happen. Not that day. Not in that hotel room. And especially not with Daniel, my son. Let me ask you something first. From which city are you watching us right now? Let me know down in the comments. It's always so interesting to see where everyone's tuning in from. Now, grab a coffee or something stronger, because what I'm about to share, well, it still makes my heart race just thinking about it. It all started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had just landed in Chicago after a long and exhausting flight from Arizona. My son Daniel had insisted on picking me up from the airport, which I thought was sweet. He'd been living in the city for the past few years, busy with work and life. We didn't get to see each other as often as we used to, so this little visit was supposed to be some much-needed time to catch up. Just a mother and her son reconnecting. The hotel I was staying at was a little boutique one near the lake, the kind of place that smelled faintly of lavender and had carpets too plush for their own good. As we rode up in the old brass elevator, I couldn't help but notice how much Daniel had changed. His hair was a little longer than I remembered, the kind that brushed just past his ears. He looked leaner, more mature somehow. There was something in his eyes, too, a quietness, like he had things on his mind he wasn't saying out loud. We got to the room, cozy, warm, and tastefully decorated. I tossed my purse on the armchair while Daniel pulled the suitcase inside. "Let me help you unpack, Mom," he said. I chuckled and raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you help me unpack?" He smiled, a slow, knowing smile, and shrugged. Just felt like being helpful today. There was something about the way he said it. I couldn't place it then. I just laughed and rolled with it. He opened the closet doors and started hanging my dresses on the padded hangers, being surprisingly gentle with each item. I sat on the edge of the bed watching him. A strange wave of nostalgia washed over me. I remembered hanging his tiny jackets on hooks by the door when he was in kindergarten. And now here he was, all grown, hanging my clothes like some kind of quiet caretaker. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" I asked. He paused mid-motion, holding one of my blouses. His fingers lingered on the fabric. "Yeah," he said, but his voice was quieter. "Just thinking." I tilted my head. "About what?" He turned toward me and sat on the edge of the dresser, folding his arms. "About us, I guess." I blinked. That was unexpected. "What do you mean?" I asked softly. He looked away for a moment, and I could tell he was trying to find the right words. "It's just, we haven't really had time to talk in a while. Not deeply. Not like we used to." He was right. Life had scattered us in different directions. Between my retirement, his job, and everything in between, we'd lost touch with the emotional closeness we once had. I patted the bed next to me. "Come sit." He did. And for a moment, we just sat there in silence, listening to the rain tapping softly against the window. It felt like time had paused. The kind of pause that's pregnant with something unspoken. "You used to tell me everything," I said. Daniel let out a small breath. "I know. I've missed that." I reached over and touched his hand. Me too. It felt like an old rhythm was waking up between us. The one where I wasn't just his mom. I was his confidant, his safe place. And then came the moment I didn't expect. Daniel turned slightly toward me, his expression unreadable. "Can I tell you something? Something I've been carrying for a while." I nodded, heart fluttering without reason. "Of course." He hesitated. "Promise you won't be upset." "Daniel, you could tell me you robbed a bank, and I'd probably ask if you needed help hiding the money." That made him laugh, and some of the tension lifted. I've been feeling different lately, he said. About my past, about you, about how I grew up. I think I've been holding on to something, and I need to let it out. I waited. When I think about comfort, about warmth and understanding, I think about you, he said. My heart softened. That sweet baby. He shook his head. No, I mean, it's deeper than that. When I was going through stuff I never talked about, you were the only one who made me feel seen. Like really seen. And I never told you how much that meant to me. How much it still means to me. I squeezed his hand. Daniel, you don't have to carry those things alone. He nodded slowly. I know. That's why I'm here. That's why I wanted this visit. I wanted to feel that closeness again. And I needed to say it. His voice cracked at the end, just a little. I reached over and pulled him into a hug. A real one. Tight, warm, the kind that says, I'm here, in every fiber of your being. And in that moment, holding my grown son close, something shifted. Not in a dramatic, inappropriate way. Nothing like that. But in an emotional, soul-level way. Like we were seeing each other as human beings again. Past the roles, past the titles. Just two people, relearning how to love and understand each other. That night in the hotel room, with our hands still gently clasped and our words hanging between us, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. And something told me this was just the beginning. The rain had eased into a mist by the time I pulled the curtains closed. Outside, the city lights shimmered like soft fireflies behind the glass, but inside, the hotel room felt like a quiet little world of its own. Daniel had stretched out on the other side of the bed, arms behind his head, staring up at the ceiling as if the answers to his thoughts were written in the paint. I sat back down beside him, feeling that familiar tug in my chest. The kind you feel when you realize the person you raised is now a man, facing things you can't always protect him from. Can I ask you something? I said. He turned his head slightly toward me. Of course. What brought all this on? I mean, this trip, this visit, what you said earlier. It felt like more than just catching up. Daniel nodded, his gaze returning to the ceiling for a beat. Yeah, it's been building for a while. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About my childhood. About how I always felt closest to you, even when I couldn't say the words. I looked down at my hands, resting quietly in my lap. You know, I used to worry I wasn't enough for you. After your father left, I always wondered if I was giving you what you needed. He sat up then, really looked at me. You gave me everything, Mom. The sincerity in his voice startled me. I could feel the warmth rising in my cheeks. I don't think I would have made it through my teen years without you, he continued. When everything felt uncertain, school, friends, even figuring out who I was, you were the one constant, the one who didn't judge me. I smiled softly. That's what mothers do, honey. We love without needing anything in return. I know, he said. But now that I'm older, I want to give something back. That last sentence lingered in the air like a held breath. He stood up and walked to the little hotel kitchenette, poured us both a glass of water. When he returned, he handed me mine and sat beside me again, this time closer. I could feel the warmth of his arm against mine. Do you remember, he said, that night in high school when I came home after that fight with Jason? The one where I wouldn't say a word and I locked myself in my room. I did remember. I hadn't forgotten. Yes, I brought you a bowl of soup. You didn't even touch it. He laughed quietly. I didn't. but I kept it in the room all night because you cared enough to bring it. I didn't know what to say. I admitted. I didn't want to push you. That was the right call, he said. You never pushed. You just waited. You were patient. And I never said thank you for that. He looked at me again, really looked, and his expression was softer now. Less guarded. Thank you, Mom. I didn't respond right away. Something inside me ached, like a wound I didn't know was still open had just been kissed by sunlight. You don't have to thank me, I whispered. I do, he said. Because I've carried those memories with me. Every time I thought I wasn't enough, I'd remember how you'd hold my hand at night when I had nightmares. Or how you'd hum that stupid lullaby when I had the flu. Or how you'd wait at the window whenever I got home late, pretending like you hadn't been worried sick. We both chuckled at that. I was always terrified something would happen to you, I confessed. Even after you moved out, I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking maybe I should call, just to hear your voice. Daniel leaned his head gently on my shoulder. I never realized how much you were carrying too, he said. I guess we both were, I replied. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence that only happens between two people who trust each other completely. A shared pause. A space for breathing. Eventually, I stood up and went to change into something more comfortable. A soft robe, light gray, cinched at the waist. My feet padded across the carpet as I returned to the bed, where Daniel had now turned the bedside lamp on. The soft golden light filled the room with a warm, familiar glow. I think I was scared of disappointing you, he said suddenly. I turned toward him. You never have. He looked surprised. Never? Never, I said firmly. You've made mistakes, sure, but you've always come back stronger. You've always tried to be better. That's what matters. His eyes seemed to glisten slightly, though he blinked quickly and looked away. I wish I could go back sometimes, he murmured, to when things were simpler. I smiled. They were never simple, sweetheart, but we made it feel that way, because we had each other. He reached out and took my hand again, this time holding it a little tighter. I don't want this to be just a visit, he said. I want us to stay close again, not just text on holidays or the occasional phone call. I miss this. Us. My throat tightened. I hadn't realized just how much I'd needed to hear those words. I miss it too, I said. And you're right. We don't have to wait for flights and hotel rooms to talk like this. We sat like that for a long time, just holding hands, listening to the quiet hum of the room. And in that stillness, something was healing between us, something long overdue. He brushed a hand over his forehead and let out a breathy laugh. You know, I didn't expect any of this. I thought I'd drop you off, help with the bags, maybe grab dinner. Not this. I laughed too. Life has a funny way of surprising us when we least expect it. Daniel nodded. Yeah, but I'm glad. So am I said, squeezing his hand one last time before letting go. Later, when we both settled in for the night, he on the small couch, me in the bed, I turned off the lamp and closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. In fact, I felt something else entirely. Whole. I woke up to the sound of soft city traffic outside the window, a few horns, a passing siren, the rhythmic hush of tires on wet pavement. For a second, I forgot where I was. The hotel ceiling stared blankly down at me, and then I heard it, Daniel's voice, low and gentle, speaking into his phone from the other side of the room. Yeah? No, I'll be staying with her for a bit longer. Yeah, everything's fine. It's just something I need." I turned my head just slightly. He was standing by the kitchenette, his back to me, his voice careful but steady. I didn't recognize who he was talking to. Maybe a friend, maybe someone from work. But something in his tone caught my attention. It wasn't just polite. It was purposeful. Like he was carving out this space deliberately. For us. When he hung up, he noticed I was awake. "Hey," he said softly. "Didn't mean to wake you." I smiled sleepily. "It's all right. That bed's so soft, I could have slept through a thunderstorm." He walked over, still in a t-shirt and sweats, and sat on the edge of the bed. "How'd you sleep?" "Well, better than I have in weeks, honestly." There was a pause, not heavy, just full of possibility. "I'm glad," he said. We ended up going downstairs for breakfast. The hotel's little bistro was quiet that morning, a few scattered tables occupied by business travelers scrolling through their phones. We sat by the window, Daniel sipping coffee, me savoring a perfectly fluffed omelette. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," I said between bites. He looked up, curious. "You were right. About how we've let time pass without keeping up. And I think I convinced myself that was normal. That mothers and sons naturally drift as they get older." "Yeah," he said slowly. "But I don't want that to be our story." I reached across the table and touched his wrist lightly. "Neither do I." There was something in his eyes again. That same searching look from the night before, like he was on the edge of saying something, but still figuring out how. "You know what's funny?" he said after a moment. "I've been talking to my therapist about you." That surprised me. "Me?" He nodded. "Not in a bad way. Actually, in a way that helped me realize just how much of who I am came from you. The way I talk, the way I handle stress, even how I try to take care of people." I sat back a little, absorbing that. "I didn't know you were in therapy." "Started a year ago," he said. "It was overdue. Helped me unpack some stuff. And I realized there was a lot about my childhood I'd never fully understood, especially how much you shielded me." I nodded slowly. "I tried my best. There were things I didn't want you to carry. Things you were too young to make sense of." "Yeah," he said. "But I think in the process of protecting me, you forgot to let yourself be seen too. That caught me off guard." He continued, "You always looked strong. Always had an answer. But I remember a few nights hearing you cry through the wall. I was too scared to say anything then, but I never forgot. I swallowed hard. Those were lonely years, Daniel, being both mother and father, trying to work, pay bills, cook, clean, and still be emotionally available for you. There were nights I'd lie awake wondering if I was doing any of it right." He reached over and took my hand again, just like the night before. But this time it was firmer, more present. "You did more than right," he said. "You gave me something no one else could. A foundation." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. There was a lump in my throat, and even blinking felt like too much effort. I just let myself feel it. All of it. The gratitude. The ache. The joy. The years we'd lived parallel, but never said the things that needed saying. We walked the city for a while after breakfast. The rain had stopped, and the sky was a cool gray canvas. The sidewalks glistened, and the air smelled like fresh pavement and coffee from the nearby cafes. We didn't talk much. We didn't have to. We moved in sync, like we were rediscovering an old rhythm we didn't know we still had. Back in the room, as the afternoon light mellowed through the window, we both settled into the kind of quiet that only comes from trust. I sat at the desk, flipping through a book I had brought, while Daniel lounged on the couch, sketching absently in a notepad he carried everywhere. Another thing I hadn't known he did, drawing. "What are you working on?" I asked. He turned the pad toward me, revealing a loose but elegant sketch of a woman sitting by a window. Profile view, hands folded in her lap, hair pinned up. "That's me," I said softly. He smiled. "Yeah, from this morning." There was something deeply moving about seeing myself through his eyes, quiet, gentle, thoughtful. For so many years I had only seen myself through the lens of responsibility. But he saw something different, something I'd forgotten was even there. "Daniel," I said, "thank you." He met my gaze. "For what?" "For seeing me, not just as your mother, but as a person." He nodded slowly. "You're an amazing person, Mom." That evening, we ordered dinner in, room service pasta and a slice of cheesecake we split. We watched an old movie, the kind he used to roll his eyes at but secretly liked, and as the final credits rolled, he turned to me with an expression that was different than before, not just reflective, but something deeper. "There's one more thing I haven't told you," he said. I looked at him, heart steady now. "Okay." He sat forward. "I've been scared to come back here, to this kind of closeness, because I didn't want it to stir up things I didn't know how to handle." "Like what?" He hesitated. "Like how strong our bond is, how it goes deeper than just parent and child. You were my first example of what real love looked like, and sometimes I think I still measure everything else by that." That left me speechless for a moment, not because it was inappropriate. It wasn't. It was simply real, honest. And in that moment, I understood what he was saying. The kind of love that shapes you, it leaves a permanent imprint. It doesn't fade. It deepens. And if you're lucky, it finds a way back into your life when you need it most. "Daniel," I said, my voice soft, "we don't need to label it. Let's just let it be what it is. Something good, something healing." He smiled, and the smile was lighter than any he'd worn in years. That night, we both slept deeply. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't dream about the past. I dreamed about what was still possible. The next morning, I woke up before the sun had fully risen. The city was still sleeping, just a few distant car horns, a flicker of headlights now and then. The hotel room was quiet except for the steady hum of the heater and the soft, rhythmic breathing coming from the couch where Daniel lay, still asleep under the extra blanket. I watched him for a moment, my heart wrapped in a strange, aching kind of peace. He looked younger in sleep, less burdened, more like the boy I used to wake with whispered good mornings and warm toast. It hit me then, with a kind of bittersweet clarity. This wasn't just about the visit. It wasn't just about catching up after lost time. Something deeper had been repaired between us. Not loudly, not with some grand gesture, but quietly, like gold filling in a cracked piece of porcelain. We'd spent so many years drifting past each other, each of us protecting the other from things we didn't want to say out loud. And now, in this strange, quiet hotel room, we'd finally dared to say them. By the time Daniel stirred, I'd already showered and packed my small bag. He stretched, rubbed his eyes, and blinked at me with a half-smile. "Morning," he said groggily. "Morning," I replied, gently zipping up my suitcase. He sat up, scrubbing his hand through his hair. "We have to check out already." "Not yet," I said. But I thought I'd get ahead of it. I wanted us to have a little more time to talk before the rush. He stood and walked over to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to let in a stripe of pale morning light. "I don't want to leave this behind when we walk out that door," he said, still looking out at the city. "You won't," I said gently. He turned to me. "How do you know?" "Because it's not about the room," I said. "It's about the choice we made, to be real with each other again." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess it is a choice." We sat down again, this time across from each other, knees almost touching. "Daniel," I said, "you're a grown man now. You don't need my permission to be honest with yourself. But I want you to know, whatever parts of yourself you've been hiding, doubting, or questioning, I've seen them. I see all of you, and I accept all of it." His eyes met mine, and for a second I saw the little boy again, the one who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, not because he was scared of the storm, but because he trusted me to be his calm. "Thank you," he said, "for always being the one place I could come back to." "You're not coming back," I said. "You're just continuing. With me, not behind or ahead, side by side." He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for years. We didn't say much more after that. We didn't need to. Instead, we spent the rest of the morning walking along the lakefront, sipping coffee from paper cups and watching the sunlight reflect off the water in quiet ripples. The sky had cleared and a soft breeze danced around us, cool but not cold. It felt like the city was giving us permission to move forward. When it was time to check out, we stood in the lobby a moment longer than we needed to. I glanced around the space, the soft carpets, the elegant chandeliers, the hushed sounds of suitcase wheels and elevator dings, and realized this place would always carry a certain memory now. Not because of anything grand that happened, but because of the small, soul-deep things that finally did. Daniel offered to walk me out to the cab. As we stood on the sidewalk, waiting for the driver to pop the trunk, I turned to him. "Will you be all right?" I asked. He smiled. "More than all right. And we'll keep talking like this," I added. "Every day if you want," he said. "I don't want this connection to fade again." I reached up and smoothed a hand over his cheek, something I hadn't done in years. "Then don't let it. We both have a say now." He hugged me, and it wasn't a quick, polite embrace. It was the kind of hug that holds time inside it, a closing of a chapter, a promise for the next. As I slid into the cab and the driver pulled away, I glanced back once. Daniel was still standing there, hands in his jacket pockets, watching me go. He raised one hand in a small wave, and I mirrored it through the glass. The city faded behind me, but something new had taken root inside me. I've always believed that love takes many forms. It can be loud and messy or quiet and enduring. But the kind that heals, the kind that returns when you thought it was lost, that's the kind you never forget. And maybe, just maybe, this unexpected hotel visit wasn't about packing or unpacking after all. It was about opening up a suitcase neither of us had dared to touch before. And finally together, we began to unpack everything that truly mattered.